Hi students, this is a little optional video about graphing logarithmic functions. So I'm just going to go through, this actually is an example from your homework. This is 4.2 and the question is f of x equals the log of 8 minus x minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the steps here. Step 1 is going to be to set the argument equal to 0 and solve. Okay, now after we do that, sorry, this something. Sorry. Okay, so after we do this, we will test regions, find vertical asymptote, and find domain. Okay, so that's usually what we start with. So 8 minus x is equal to 0. I add x to both sides, and I get 8 is equal to x. Now, this is the vertical asymptote. So when I go to graph, I will be dashing that in. Now, what I want to see from you is I'd like to see the number line with the value we are not able to use, because remember, we can only take the log of a positive value, not of 0. And if I plug that in here for x, I'm going to get log of 0, which we can't do. So let's test where x is 9, that's the right region in the right, and then I'm going to test x equals 7. So if I go ahead and, again, we're plugging this in for x. If I plug in 9, 8 take away 9 is negative. That means we may not use anything to the right of the vertical asymptote. If I plug in 7, 8 take away 7 is positive. So this is our domain. So we'll say the domain is from negative infinity all the way up to that vertical asymptote of 8. Okay, now we start the graphing process. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to show that vertical asymptote, and we're going to show a table of values. So the equation again for this is f of x equals the log of 8 take away x minus 1. Now remember, the base here, that's a base of 10. When you don't see it, when it's just written log of something, that's base 10. All right, so we need to pick values that will actually create this argument, and it will play nicely with a base 10, so powers of 10. So what I like to do with this is if I want my argument, okay, so if I want argument equal to, let's say equal to 10, because I know log base 10 of 10 is 1. That would work nicely. So we'd say, okay, 8 take away x. We want this to be 10. So I can subtract 8 from both sides and divide by negative 1. Oopsies. And so we should get, that looks weird, we should get negative 2. So that could be my first input. Now when I plug that in, what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, we're doing f of negative 2. That's log of 8 minus negative 2 minus 1. Order of operations says I do what's in the parentheses first, which will give me a 10. Order of operations then says, hey, do this log of 10. So this is f of negative 2, log base 10 of 10. So the little question we're asking is 10 to what power is 10? Well, that's 1. 1 take away 1. And so our final value is going to be 0. That's my output. So negative 2, 0. Okay, let's think about what else we can use here. What if we want the argument to be, let's say we want the argument to be 1. Let's try that. So we want 8 minus x to equal 1. So we solve for x. This is negative 7, so x is 7. So I plug 7 in. Now I say, okay, well, let's see, f of 7 equals log base 10. We don't write that, but we know what that is. 8 minus 7 minus 1. F of 7 is log of 1 minus 1. Again, this means 10 to what power is 1? Well, that has to be 0. So we say f of 7 equals 0, take away 1, and f of 7 equals negative 1. So we're at 7, negative 1 right here. Okay, now we can also see this minus 1 was a vertical shift down. So that actually makes sense with what we're seeing here. Now we need one value at least, very close to the asymptote. So for this one, the argument is 8 minus x. I would really like it to equal 1/10, because that would play nicely. So let's try this. All right, so let's say I want the argument to be equal to 1/10. Okay, so I subtract 8 from both sides, and I would get negative 7 and 9/10. And it's fine if you write that in a decimal because it actually works out nicely, or an improper fraction, totally fine. I like it this way because I can see how close I am to the 8. So I want to plug in 7 and 9/10. 7 and 9/10, so really close to 8. When I plug that in, here's what we see. F of 7 and 9/10 equals log of 8 minus 7 and 9/10 minus 1. Now this, just like we wanted, is going to be equal to 1/10. That's what we said we wanted it equal to, so that shouldn't be a surprise. So we get log of 1/10 minus 1. Now, this means right here, 10 to what power is 1/10? Well, that's negative 1. So f of 7 and 9/10 equals negative 1 minus 1, which is negative 2. So we have something very close, and we're all the way here at negative 2, and now we can draw that graph in. Oops, I'm not in love with that. Let's try that again. Something like this. And then that's your function. So I said step 1. Step 2 is going to be to create your table, and step 3 is the actual graph. But step 1, we're always going to start with setting your argument equal to 0, solving for the variable, testing the regions. This will help you find your vertical asymptote to graph and also tell you which side of the vertical asymptote you're allowed to use for inputs.